Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. One of the biggest things that we have been witnessing in the last couple months is the fact that institutions are now ready for DeFi. They want to jump in on tokenization endeavors. They want to get behind this. And it's at a time where we also have Ripple hiring in selective areas around institutional DeFi initiatives on the XRP ledger. Now, again, as an XRP holder right now, everyone could easily get caught up in price action. They can get caught up in whatever the hell they want to get caught up in. Me personally, listen, institutions are going to pump our bags. I mean, there's just no way to really put that outside of it sounding terrible, but institutions are the ones that are going to drive our bags. I've talked about this in the past as well. Listen, institutional money and retail money, it's completely different things, guys. These are completely different animals. Institutions have trillions and trillions of dollars. Retail could definitely pump things, but when we talk about major endeavors happening here, institutions building out services for their clients, we're talking about millions and hundreds of millions of clients, possibly even billions. This is how we get to mass adoption. Back in October, there was a great article that got written by Blockworks. The next leg of DeFi users will be institutions. Blockchain Capital Larson expects. Now, when we look at this, all right, DeFi has always been coined as, oh, you could escape the major players. You want to get away from BlackRock and this and that and Wall Street. Well, guess what? Now they're here. And as we look at this, right, we need to address where we're going, right? We are extremely early on the DeFi revolution. And over the course of the next couple years, I feel as though that is going to be evidently clear. What do I mean by that? Well, we are very early now, and it doesn't seem like it because we're not moving in terms of price action. There's not a lot happening. There's a lot of us here, obviously, and the market is already at 1.7 trillion. We hit $3 trillion at all-time highs. You might be saying, well, we're not early anymore, right? But that's what everyone has been saying. But when we really look at what's happening, right? DeFi, tokenization, a lot of these major endeavors, they haven't hit mass adoption. We're not really close to mass adoption just yet. But down here we have the next leg of DeFi users. It won't be retail. The power users of financial services tend to be institutional. When you think about the next leg of innovation in DeFi, derivatives come to mind for me. And these are not really retail products. These are products for sophisticated users of financial tools. Now, when we look at that, I have been addressing the steps. Back in the beginning of January, not to be a broken record here, I said that ETFs are the start. To really sum this post up, I said that ETFs are starting point number one. After that, we really start to look at what's happening next. Now, big shout out to Chad Steingraber. He's actually been addressing a lot of these big moves being made by institutional players like the DTCC, for an example. In their press release, in less than 4 months, the US moves to T+1 settlement cycles. Tokenization is coming in hot this year. This happened January 31st, with less than 4 months until the US moves to T+1 settlement cycle. Now, the DTCC, they also acquired Securrency, and they rebranded to DTCC Digital Assets. Mind you, when we look at the DTCC, they are fully focused on institutional. But also, they are settling $2.5 quadrillion worth of securities per year. Here we have Securrency, now DTCC Digital Assets, tokenizing the entire clearinghouse of the DTCC using Stellar XLM and or XRP. Plus others if needed. In less than 4 months, the US moves to T+1. And here you can actually see This was originally Security's overall introduction. Security's protocol can be utilized on the Ethereum, Stellar, Ripple, EOS, and other distributed ledgers, as well as on legacy systems, allowing for seamless on-chain and off-chain movement of tokens. Now, outside of this, a lot of people have been addressing a few things happening. Specifically, an individual named Jack XRP3 put out this. The final rule shortens the settlement cycle to 1 business day for most securities transactions, effective May 28th, 2024. This is when everything changes around the security settlement cycle. But these are the moves being made right now behind the scenes that not a lot of people are talking about. Over here, we have step 1, launch the ETF. Step 2, tokenization of the entire security market. Step 2 is in progress right now. And it is, right? This is what I've talked about. I've addressed this, right? Tokenization is the next big endeavor. I've addressed that in here. I said we are starting to see the flood of institutional and enterprise players jumping into the space. And it really started with BlackRock with the ETF. These ETFs were a big move. The next part here is tokenization. A lot of players in this space have been focused on tokenization endeavors for a while. I mean, tokenization is not a new term. It's been around for well over, I want to say, almost 10 years now. But as we look at this, things that get me very excited about this is where Ripple stands in the technological revolution that is, of course, tokenization. Over here, there's a video posted by XRP Drops. Now, this video is almost 8 minutes long. Guys, I'm not going to let you sit through 8 minutes. I'm going to speed this up to about roughly 1.5 to almost 1 3/4. If this is too fast, I apologize. You guys are more than welcome to slow it down. I don't want you guys watching a 30-minute long video. But here we have Ripple, HSBC, Standard Chartered, and Zodiac Custody. The different use cases of tokenization, Ripple Swell 2023 Dubai. Determination of the ownership, Zodiac Custody. Tokenization of gold and real estate, HSBC. Enabling diversification of the portfolio is the Holy Grail, Standard Chartered. And this is all with Ripple Medico.
They use tokenization for various use cases that you would never think about when your brain is looking at tokenizing gold or currencies with stablecoins, etc. And it really pushes you to a point where you can think about tokenization as a way to manage the ownership of your house. Opening the door is actually some form of a token relationship. Opening your car, securing your ownership way beyond the traditional assets that we deal with today. So, Julian, because you are today very advanced, of course, in your journey, can you tell us a little bit about the use cases that you have imagined as a company and where you see the market moving?
Yes, I think there is a number of opportunities that are often talked about in terms of securities, and I think actually property has a greater opportunity in terms of tokenization. And I think there's also those areas where transfer of value is difficult or challenging, whether that's through economic or regulation or society type challenges. The point, I'm just going to move the conversation a little bit, and you can pull me back if you want, Adrian, but I think the bigger challenge that we've got when we talk about tokenization is around both the regulatory and legal status, so who owns those assets and what it is, but also the control function. And just a very simple example, if Apple have got 1,000 shares, I think they have 1 or 2 more. If they have 1,000 shares and I buy a share, I have 1,000th of that business. Okay? How do I know they haven't given them 1,100? Okay? I have people, the exchanges, the auditors, the accountants, the lawyers, all giving me assurance that there's only 1,000 Apple assets out there. So if we tokenize this building, and I haven't had the joy of coming here, do I know it exists? Do I know it is of substance? Do I know the occupancy rate, etc.? I'm going to have to rely on a lot of experts to understand the physical asset and the provenance of that before it then gets tokenized. And I think where the use case is going to come out is where you can get that provenance absolutely nailed and done it in a very effective way. That becomes really, really interesting.
Scott, you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, we've confined our use cases to things that we already do. Fixed income, commodities, gold, and real estate. I am sure that there are people who are thinking much more radically than that within our own organisation. But it comes back to, I think, one of the earlier points is I think we're probably likely to see specialist providers emerge who actually have a specialist knowledge of the underlying asset itself and not just the ability to digitize it. Certainly when we looked at real estate, we thought that was actually the first thing that would be the case. And we didn't follow that through to a final conclusion, because there was a body of work that said, well, actually, this sort of solution already exists. You're not bringing anything new. So, but I mean, I will be fascinated. I met the gentleman and lady from Turkey. I'm actually fascinated to hear a little bit more from them about what they're doing in this space.
So you may become a custodian of car tokens.
Of car handles, yes. Mobile car handles, no. Yeah. So I don't think there's a limit to it, but I think ultimately, like any sort of banking situation or anyone who's responsible for looking after something, they have to understand what it is. So if you're looking at things like art, for example, which again, why can't anyone own a piece of that? again, you'd want to think that whoever is safekeeping that has the knowledge of how to do that and the meaning and value of what that asset actually represents.
So there's absolutely no doubt that you will need specialist asset safekeepers, right? So if it's a car or if it's a painting or if it's real estate, you got to have that governing ecosystem on top of which you can sort of produce tokens representing ownership. And then as custodians, we may end up safekeeping them, but not creating them, right? So we rely on a specialist ecosystem that creates. And that is what us being able to participate in many different networks, right? So clients would still rely on our participation in the network, but we participate in the network not to create the asset, but sort of keep track of the ownership. So that is one that sort of expands the assets that can be sort of custodians can serve, right? Relying on the governance of that particular network. So we then become part of many different networks. Today, a network is defined largely by a jurisdiction. And then as sub-custodians, we just either are present or rely on someone else who is present. But this sort of opens up for some specialist networks that are actually forming the rules of the network. And then we are happy and hence we participate. That's our participation is some signaling of curation. And the other thing, what opportunities come through is as you create these assets that are programmable, so you can basically go down like the extent to which the small ticket that you can own, and that basically gives rise, I think it has significant implications on the value chain in the wealth side. So that's what excites me is, one is to sort of go and tokenize specific assets, but ultimately the end investor needs a diversified portfolio. One of the things that we are going to enable is very affordable diversification using this mechanism. And that's primarily where the investors, right? So we can all talk about till cows come home about the tokenization and new formats and programmability, but the investors ultimately care about returns. We probably are going to provide access to assets that have been inaccessible. So fixed income is something that we all talk about because we want to bring down the ticket sizes of ownership. There's a lot of work that's already done across many financial institutions. But imagine, even if you have 25, 30, $50 million today, you cannot have a truly diversified portfolio. Simply to have a truly diversified fixed income portfolio, probably 20 million is not enough. And that's the holy grail, I think, right? We are all in this. It's the entire value chain. We all talk about single name tokenization, but I think a collection of these tokens, composite assets is what I call, because programmability brings composability, and then look at what might happen to a collective investment scheme. Do you really need the existing value chain? And what are the implications? They're far and wide-reaching, but the ultimate goal for this decade of using this technology should be how can we enable affordable diversification at the other end of the spectrum, right? We're all the infrastructure enabling that, but for me, the ultimate opportunity there is enabling affordable diversification. Can I have?
And all of this is happening at a time where the retail sector is focused on small movements in the market. 10%, 20%, 30%. Over time, when we really talk about institutions jumping in on this space, we're not talking about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, even 100% moves. These are the largest players out there. HSBC, by the way, if you guys don't know, they are one of the biggest institutional giants out there. Trillions and trillions under their belt. BlackRock is here now. Fidelity is here. It's only a matter of time. The floodgates are already open. Now, also outside of this, just recently, we saw the CTO, David Schwartz of Ripple, reveal strategic move into $10 trillion crypto custody market with Medico. This was one that we've been aware of. In fact, Brad Garlinghouse talked about this. And all of this is to become a one-stop shop for institutional adoption and institutional use cases, like, for an example, tokenization, payments, liquidity, custody, all of that. And the custody market by itself, think about how insane this is, right? The custody market, just the custody market, $10 trillion by 2030. Then tokenization, they're talking about 16 trillion. All right, there's 26 trillion right there. We're not even talking about gaming. We're not talking about AI. We're not talking about, the metaverse or any of that stuff. Imagine how much bigger this market will be by 2030. If they're talking about 26 trillion just by tokenization and custody services, I could just imagine how big payment services are, liquidity services, DeFi itself. I mean, at the end of the day, by 2030, this market could easily balloon to 20, 30, 40, 50 trillion dollars. And a lot of people will call me crazy, but if we're just talking about custody and tokenization being $26 trillion worth of the market, I don't see how we can't get to 50 trillion or somewhere within 30 to 50 trillion at that time. And I know that that is a little bit of a stretch, but just imagine how big this market will be by that time. Mass adoption should have already have been accomplished by that point as well. And remember, right, the quote from January 19th, we're not there yet. Richard Swainston, APAC market director at Medico, said, if we look at things like standards in the case of widespread adoption, there needs to be some kind of standardized protocols. We're not there yet. There's a lot that people aren't going to be able to agree on, but trying to ensure that systems can work together quite seamlessly, it's going to be critical. This interoperability, whether between blockchains or different financial systems, was vital for enabling users to move assets freely across platforms, which he deemed essential for scaling. That's where you start to see Medico and Ripple being tapped in heavily. That's where we start to see those strategies unfold. And in my opinion, I do believe that XRP and the XRP ledger will be at the forefront of a lot of these major initiatives. And I do think that it will have a crucial piece of, I think that it will have a crucial role to fill within these two players coming together and becoming an institutional breeding ground for massive amounts of use cases. And all we're waiting to see is the standardization being put in place, and then from there we're going to see the institutions really planting their seeds in this space. And what we will see from that is tremendous growth and innovations blooming around this space. I mean, this is technology at the end of the day. It's technology that I don't think a lot of people are aware of in terms of how disruptive it will be, and that's okay. In my opinion, around this space, you really have to become a visionary to truly put things into perspective on how massive this space and this opportunity that we have right now really is. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on if you guys want more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.